Perfect Fit Closets using the 2020 design program from 2020spaces.com. We'll be looking at the client information, specifically the customer tab, the address tab, dealer tab, and design tab. We'll also discuss the mandatory fields for ordering. Mandatory fields are in the customer tab. We need the client's first name, last name. The dealer tab, which is the dealer company name, and the design tab, the designer name and the project ID. So there's a few mandatory fields and there's a few optional fields depending on what you want to use the 2020 for. I have my 2020 platform open, and to get into the client information, we're going to left click on the home tab and left click the design info button. That generates and populates a new dialog box. And let's just bring this over so everyone can see. So just like here, we have 4 different tabs: the customer tab, address tab, dealer tab, and design tab. If dealers are using the program to do quoting and adding their own multiplier and so forth, then I would highly recommend going through all the tabs and filling it out as much as possible. We have here on the customer tab, we have if the customer belongs to a company, you can enter it here or you can leave it blank. Majority of the time, you're not selling to a company, it's going to be the end user, so typically you'll leave it last. Name, you can put down a title if you so wish or leave it blank. We have the first name and last name of the client's home, work, cellular number, fax number, and email address. So again, none of these are completely mandatory, but again, you want to fill it out as best as you can. We can left click the address tab, and again, we can type in their mailing address. And we can also type in some comments. In the dealer tab, this is where the dealer's information resides. You can type in the dealer company name, the phone number and information, as well as the address. In the design tab, we've got the designer ID. Some designers, if you're working for a corporate company, you'll have a designer ID, or you just type in the designer name. We can talk about a reviewer if somebody wants to review it, order number and purchase order number. So again, these are just references as well. And then the project ID, what's it associated to, and if there's any accounts and comments below. So let's take a look at some mandatory fields and some shortcuts. The mandatory fields are very simple. There's actually not a lot. The client first name, last name, designer tab, dealer company name, design tab, designer name, and project ID. So this is the bare minimum that's needed before you place an order to orders@perfectfitcanada.com. Let's go through the minimum tab fields. And I'm going to actually type this in as this is quite important prior to ordering. So I'm going to start over again. I've got my 2020 platform open. I'm going to left click on the home tab on the top left-hand side, left click the design info. A new dialog box appears. Underneath the customer tab, the mandatory field is first name and last name. So let's name it as Bob Doe. And that is a mandatory field. So 2 first names. If you don't want to put in the customer's first name or last name, it needs some sort of character in there. I've used different types of characters. I've used B as an initial and then the customer's last name and so forth. It just needs to be populated. So those are mandatory fields here. In the address tab, again, fill it out if you want to quote purposes, but otherwise nothing here is mandatory. I'm going to left click on the dealer tab. Again, we can type in the dealer company name, which is mandatory. So let's call it John's Closet Company as my company name. And that's really the only tab that needs to be filled out. Otherwise, authorized dealers, we have at Perfect Fit all your information ready. It's not needed unless you are quoting using the 2020 program. I'm going to left click on the design tab. Designer name is important. I'm going to type in my name, Sherwin Keeley, so we know the actual designer who designed. Next is the project ID. This one is important. When we create our parts at our plants, we're going to label all the parts according to that design for that specific room. If you have 5 closets or 5 areas, we want to label every single part according to that specific room to help your installer. So I always type in the actual room. So let's just say that this is the guest closet 1. Now, when I actually go to ordering, all the stickers for that particular part will all say guest closet 1 and differentiates all the other closets. I can select on OK, and now I've got my information. We can go back to design info, and we can see that it's all saved. John's Closet Company and design and so forth. Here is a tip to make things a little faster. On the bottom left-hand side, it says show when starting a new design. If you want to populate your information, and the dealer information, if you want to populate certain information so you don't have to keep typing it over and over again, you can populate all these fields, click on show when starting a new design, and everything will populate. Or if you, my apologies, if you click show when starting a new design, this will populate as an automatic field that you have to fill this out. So I always recommend to click on it, type in that information so you don't have to do it again. If you left click on recent, you can also go back to your previous designs. In the previous designs, I've got some certain customer fields here. You can left click, select any of the previous designs that you've made, and that information will repopulate as well. So again, this is a mandatory field. Please click on the show when starting a new design. So it's mandatory that the information is needed. If you have any questions regarding this, please do contact us at support@perfectfitcanada.com.